Yes, after the technological, let's say, support, I would like to first of all thank you, Mr. Chair, and also His Excellency Ambassador of Turkey, and the head of the organizing committee of this international conference, and distinguished guests, speakers who came to our university Near East. And of course, my colleagues and also students, welcome to our session. Well, I mean, since the early morning today, I'm trying my best to listen to the presentations that have been already delivered, and it seems like that I will be touching upon similar issues that have already been discussed, but I will try my best not to, let's say, bother you. Given that my area of expertise is not actually the Cyprus issue itself, but it is rather Middle East politics, so I will try my best to locate as much as I can within the context of, let's say, the problem, within the context of the Middle East challenges or the regional challenges, and of course with the internal dynamics. When we look at, first of all, the big picture of the region and how Cyprus is located within this big picture, we have seen that there is chronic, problems of the region, because most of the, let's say, analysts may say that, the region is started to face with a big dilemma with the 2011 Arab uprisings. In parentheses, I would like to use the word uprisings rather than a spring, because I believe that a spring is more Orientalist version of saying, let's say, describing the riots going on in the region. But actually, we have to understand all the regional dynamics, which also are affecting the hydrocarbon issue since the end of the Second World War, because there are key problems in the region. And one of the main problems in the region, no need to mention, is the persistence of the Arab-Israeli conflict and its implications all over the region. It's like a spillover effect, as we have also seen last week, that Hüseyin Hocam also mentioned in his presentation, the acceptance of US President Donald Trump's, for example, annexation of Israel, annexation of the Golan Heights by Israel. So we have the side effects of this problem, let's say, still going on. 2011 Arab uprisings also created, so we cannot underestimate its implications, because we have definitely a transition in the region, and we should take into consideration the new geopolitics of the Middle East, let's say, balance of power. And one of the main issues here is definitely we have to mention about that there is authoritarian upgrading when LCC came to power in Egypt. So we have to also consider the changing identity of Egypt in the region, because it is a bit, let's say, like, I was in another international conference last week, and one of the speakers said, we have Mubarakism without Mubarak. So we can't say that actually many things has changed in Egypt, especially when we consider that there is no structural transformation. On the other hand, we have transition in Tunisia that even Freedom House itself upgraded Tunisian democracy level to 2.5 with a, let's say, democratic transition we can talk about. On the other hand, rather than talking about just the political systems, we can also mention that there is also rivalries in the region. Those who are having, let's say, a little bit, let's say, proximity to the region will definitely see that we have Saudi Arabia versus Iran, and this rivalry has really, let's say, become, let's say, heater and heater day by day we can talk about, especially when we consider the case of Syria and the proxy war going on Syria. Although we have certain resolutions that may, let's say, give an understanding about the future of Syria, but UN resolution, which is hardly has been taken due to the Russian veto many times. We have already a UN resolution, but even this resolution is, in a way, outdated because it goes back to 2015. No need to mention about Lebanon, but I think, I was thinking whether to add Lebanon or not, but thank you very much, Professor Ergetz, that he also, gave a speech about the Belgian case, because Belgian and Lebanese cases are the two cases that we use for power sharing models, which has been already also, in a way, guiding the Cyprus question. in terms of power sharing and constitutional democracy. I also wanted to add the case of Lebanon, because just like Belgium, the case of Lebanon is also giving alarms that what has been, let's say, done since 1932 and 43 National Pact, although there is a power sharing among the key sectarian ethnic groups in the country, is still we have certain deadlocks in creating problems in terms of the Lebanese internal politics. And if you can also consider the spillover effects of the war in Syria, no need to mention that Lebanese internal politics has always been faced with fragility due to the, let's say, institutional design that has been back to the French, let's say, mandate era. So if we take into consideration this big picture, what we can definitely see that we don't only have, let's say, states and the relations among the states, but with the emergence of the issue of hydrocarbon and with the emergence of the states like, let's say, non-state actors like Hezbollah and Hamas, we can also consider that there is an influence of non-state actors in the region. And that's why, rather than to be legal, some of the problems are more political and economic. And I think this has to be very much emphasized when we consider the geopolitics of the region. I also wanted to add the multinational corporations because, as we all know, in terms of the drillings and in terms of the hydrocarbon explorations, the role of the multinational corporations have really been enormous. So sometimes the reading, geopolitical reading, might not also help us to understand the full picture. Time to time, we need to also refer to social and economic security perceptions of the communities living in this region. What is New Middle East after Arab uprisings? I don't very much, let's say, want to insist on using the word new, because sometimes we say new, but it's not really new. But the academics, they like to use, like the words like post or new, and trying to put adjectives in front of the words. But if we really want to say something new about the Middle East politics, which can also affect the Cyprus problem, I think one of the most important, let's say, development was the overthrow of Muslim Brotherhood, Mohammed Morsi in 2013, and the takeover of the power by Sisi in 2014. This has really changed the geopolitical balance of power in the region. And before our panel, I think it was Professor Sertaç Hocam that already mentioned about the balance of power and how it is changing in the region. So the deterioration of relations between Turkey and Egypt, I think, and Hasan Hocam, you already also mentioned, and I think this is very important. That's why I would like to say that some of the issues that I'm going to touch upon might not be very, let's say, new, but from your distinguished scholars, we can also, let's say, support these arguments that the regional balance of power, equilibrium, has unfortunately moved at the expense of Turkey rather than in favor of Turkey. So I'm going to be a little bit, let's say, quick. We have the hydrocarbon issue, I guess, as a side effect of the Cyprus problem, because the hydrocarbon issue has shown that there are new partnerships, maybe not alliance yet. I just put it just to, alignment might be more, let's say, right word rather than saying alliance, because alliance is really going beyond partnership. So at this moment, maybe we can talk about that there is growing ties between Cyprus, here I'm talking about actually Greek Cypriots, Greece and Egypt, and of course Israel. And no need to mention that El-Sisi, who is the president of Egypt today, is the first Egyptian president paid a visit to actually Cyprus after many, many years. So there are certain, agreements or certain, let's say, protocols that have been signed, and distinguished scholars already mentioned before me. So I'm not going to go into detail, but I can say that hydrocarbon or energy reserves in the region does not act as a catalyst to solve this problem. Because there was a group of people, scholars or politicians like Anastasiadis, that there is going to be a stability or an area of peace due to the, let's say, energy reserves. But my main point of view is the side effect that has been brought by the hydrocarbon crisis is actually tied with power sharing and governance problem in the country. This is the main problem, which actually has brought us another, let's say, Pandora's box that Said Hoca is going to mention probably in the afternoon, because we already had a dialogue about what we are going to talk about. The main problem on the island, it seems like that when we look, when we try to interpret the hydrocarbon crisis, this is what I can see, that there is still a power sharing and governance problem in the country. Why the bicommunal republic has collapsed in 1963 has to do, I think, with certain lack of institutional designs, like lack of common identity, territorial identity, which also, in a way, incited or produced different ethnic nationalisms on the island. So, if we have different ethnic groups and sectarian groups, like in the case of Belgium and Lebanon, what are these cases are telling us? Within such a kind of a problematic environment of Middle East, how Cyprus problem actually can be another lesson. In Lebanon as well, as my dear professor mentioned, identities and affiliations are still salient. In Lebanon, all the political parties in the country, which is also based on a power sharing model, is still working, but it is working in a very unstable way, that it can create any conflict and cleavage anytime. And one of the main reasons is, I know that I have 1 minute left, but I will try my best, is the lack of moderate political parties. Because Maronites, they vote in favor of Maronites. For example, Sunnis, they support the Sunni political parties, and this can create ethnic, it can crystallize, let's say, the internal cleavages. So my last minute is going to go to European Union, but it's not an Oscar, because European Union couldn't act as an actor, as a soft power in Cyprus problem. If we take into consideration international community, I want to mention very quickly the role of the EU and the role of the UN. EU has actually promised 3 regulations after Annan Plan referenda. However, one of them, which was related with empowerment of the Turkish Cypriot community on the northern part of the island, the European Union, through Protocol 10, suspended the acquis, and then they promised to flourish, to support and flourish a comprehensive solution in order to achieve political equality among the both sides. But this has never been, let's say, met since 2004. And even TRNC President Akıncı also reiterated that, like the European Union membership of the whole island is another mistake, like Eastern Mediterranean pipeline. And he also said the Greek Cypriot side move away from a solution, and if they are the sole owners of the natural gas, excluding Turkish Cypriot side and Turkey, the little incentive they have for a solution will diminish. What I'm trying to say, when European Union and integrated Cyprus as the sole member of the European Union, this created an unbalanced equilibrium on the island and also in the region. And that's why EU couldn't act as a normative power to solve this very conflict. And there was one thing more that I think we need to mention. Maybe Said Hocam can, let's say, shed a light more on that. Direct trade regulation, which has been promised by the European Union, has never been implemented. This led the Turkish Cypriot community actually to face with a disappointment in terms of the unfulfillment of the European Union promises. Because through the direct trade regulation, there could be a leverage on the Greek Cypriot community. And last word, but not the least, the comprehensive settlement method of settling Cyprus problem is a trap, because for the last 50 years, we couldn't bring a solution to the island And one main principle that needs to be evaluated is nothing is agreed without everything is agreed. I would like to thank you very much for your patience.